Hello, welcome to the UF IFAS Okaloosa County Extension Pod training. This training is for Okaloosa County employees who are essential employees and assigned to pods by the Okaloosa County Human Resources Department. The training and associated components should take around 20 minutes and you will need internet access. So let's get started. Pods are points of distribution, and they are defined by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, as centralized locations where the public can pick up life-sustaining commodities following a disaster and/or an emergency. Pods are located throughout the county at pre-selected sites by our emergency management chief. This would include pods in the northern to the southern portions of the county and everywhere in between. So when are points of distributions activated? Pods are generally activated within 24 hours after an event, such as a hurricane. Activation includes determination of what pods will open, the amount of resources that are needed, and also importantly, the staff that need to be at either the site or sites that have been activated. How will you, as an essential employee assigned to pods, receive communication regarding pod activation? You will receive notification by two methods. The first is you will receive a message via your county email and also your phone number that you will provide, which I will talk about later on in a survey. You will receive communications from the UF IFAS Okaloosa County Extension Services team. These notifications will include pod updates, activations, and important instructions to serve in the pod capacity. This is a short video from FEMA that provides an outline of what a pod looks like once activated and in operation. So let's take a look.
Once you make the decision to activate, you must assemble a team. A pod team consists of a manager, a loading team, and a support team. The manager is responsible for everything at the pod, including staffing and supply levels, supply chain flow, safety, and reporting. Under the direction of the manager, the loading team conducts loading operations. They keep the vehicles moving safely through the line. The support team resupplies, unloads bulk commodities, and sustains staff operations, including rest areas and trash removal. A public information officer is part of the support team too. You will need one on site to talk to the media and provide information to residents. Safety at the pod site is paramount. Inspect your work area daily, wear proper gear, and report injuries or incidents immediately. Each LEMA has different issues to consider. You can see why planning ahead is vital to your pod operation and your community's recovery. The United States Army Corps of Engineers has developed a typing standard for pods, which you may want to adopt. A Type 3 pod is the smallest. It is 150 feet by 300 feet. A staff of 19 personnel supports 3 loading points and 1 vehicle lane. This pod can serve 5,000 people per day. A Type 2 pod is 250 feet by 300 feet. A staff of 34 personnel supports 6 loading points and 2 vehicle lanes. This pod serves 10,000 people a day. A Type 1 pod is the largest and measures 250 feet by 500 feet. A staff of 78 personnel supports 12 loading points and 4 vehicle lanes. A Type 1 pod is only used in large metropolitan areas, and it serves 20,000 people per day. This is an actual Type 3 pod being set up. Pods are generally open to the public for 12 hours a day. Recommended hours are from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Shutting down for resupply from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. is a good practice. During this time, staff numbers decrease. This gives your personnel and volunteers a break. This also reduces the amount of time the pod is open to the public in low light conditions. Now the pod is ready to open. A vehicle enters the pod through a 12-foot wide lane marked with traffic cones. The traffic controller stands at the front where everyone can see him or her and signals a vehicle to stop. Once everyone stops, the traffic controller blows one long whistle blast and shouts, "Load!" Load is echoed by the loaders. The loaders load supplies into the car and then step back and shout, "Clear!" The traffic controller visually verifies that everyone has cleared the line. Another long whistle blasts, followed by a hand signal. The next one enters the line and the process repeats. The pod manager monitors the burn rate to keep the supply chain flowing. The consumption rate is reported to Lima each day. Once the disaster winds down, these inventory reports validate costs and are used to recoup costs. When recovery has reached a point where the local community can sustain itself, the pod will close. Make sure you give an advance notification of closing. Let Lima, the property owner, and the public know 24 to 36 hours before you shut down operations. Have a plan in place of where to send anyone who shows up after closing. Some you leave. Again, been provided.
So, hopefully, that video showed what it will look like to be at the pod and what types of activities you'll be participating in to serve our community in times of need. So, what do you need to do to prepare for your service at the pods? First, understand that you need to be available to serve in this capacity when the pod or pods are activated. Part of what this means is you might want to think about preparing a plan for you and or your family, knowing that you have this commitment in advance. So for example, think about you, your family, animals that you may have, and what does it look like if you're not able to be with them in service of pod when you're serving the pod, and what you'll need and what to prepare. Also, it's important to consider what personal items you need to get ready for pod activation and pod service. For example, are there certain medications that you will need throughout the day? Is there a certain diet or foods that you need or liquids to accompany you during the service? It's important to be proactive and think through these items before pods are activated. So, what do you expect upon arrival at the pod? The video we watched showed you a little bit of this, but let me reiterate a few things. First step is to locate the pod manager. The pod manager is the one that will be leading all efforts. They will be debriefing you daily, assigning roles, and sharing specific instructions for safety and operation of the pod. In Okaloosa County, all of our pod or pod locations will have a manager from the Extension Services Office. What roles may be assigned during your service at the pod? Things that we will need are a safety leader, a load supervisor, and loaders. So the loaders are the ones that will be getting the items from the distribution trucks and putting them to the distribution site, meaning where the cars pull up and they're able to receive the goods that they need. So we will have someone that oversees the supervision of all of that and those that are actually completing the loading. In the load supervisor role, you will be a part of keeping track of our use of various items as we need to report that, but most importantly, ensure that we have enough to provide to the community as they come and have various needs. Other roles are distribution supervisor and distributors, excuse me. So the distribution supervisor is managing overall the distribution to the vehicles. So we have distributors, people that are loading cases of water into the back of the truck or tarps, or whatever our emergency management chief deems that our community needs at that time. The distribution supervisor, like the loader supervisor, will be keeping track of a burn rate. So, for example, how many cases of water are we loading into vehicles per hour? Again, it's important that we keep record of this so that we can ensure we have what the community needs. Other roles are greeters, managing traffic flow, and also in giving the public instructions. So, for example, in the video you had seen, there was an individual that was saying, "Pull up here, stop your vehicle here." You will think about this. Something important to remember is that the individuals and families that are coming to the pod may be under a lot of stress. So it's very important that we can give them as clear of communication as possible to make the pod flow efficiently and effectively. Also, it's important just to remember that potentially you could work up to a 12-hour day at a pod. Depending on scheduling and need and how many pods are open, that may vary, but there is potential to have a very long day. So we want to ensure you are prepared and able and ready to potentially work a long day. As kind of covered in the video, there are different types of pods. So in Okaloosa County, we only have one Type 1 distribution point. That is at the Destin Fort Walton Beach Convention Center. All of our other pods that have been pre-selected throughout the county fall within the Type 3 distribution point. Currently, we do not have a Type 2 distribution. But as pod locations change, the distribution type could potentially change with that. Importantly, your pod leader and manager will instruct you to help them set up the pod and the flow of vehicles, traffic, distribution of items, the distributed trucks that are coming in and where they park. They will have a plan set in place, but they may reach out to you and need your help to set that up and ensure that there's continual flow and efficiency through that pod. Some of the items that you might be distributing to the community include cases of water, potentially tarps, and also meal kits. These are the most common that traditionally have been provided via pods during emergencies in Florida in the past. But the emergency management chief will determine what our needs are, and then subsequently we will distribute these to the community. So again, just to reiterate a few points, what should you expect during your pod service? Remember, safety is the most important, so please behave and act in a safe and professional manner. There will be safety vests to be worn by all pod workers. We need to ensure that we are aware of our surroundings and environment. For example, one of the things the pod manager will go over is when a vehicle comes up to stop and then their trunk or vehicle is loaded with items, we want to ensure that that vehicle is in park. So anytime a vehicle comes up, they need to be in park just in case. We want to eliminate all potential hazards as much as possible. Along with that, it's important to use proper lifting techniques. If you're uncertain what those are, please reach out to me and I'm happy to share those with you. And also eat and drink to stay well. You are a vital part to make the pod activity effective and ensure our community gets what they need. Again, it's very helpful to assist the pod manager in documentation, as there's not only reporting requirements to the county, but other entities as well. And please, please, please do not hesitate to ask any questions and be engaged during your service. So next steps. First step completed. You have listened to me and reviewed this PowerPoint. The next step is to complete the information intake. So please scan this QR code. It will take you to looks like a survey. Please complete that survey in full. It is vital that you provide the most up-to-date information. For example, the email and the phone number that you put in that survey will be how you are contacted during pod activation. So please ensure you double check that information and complete all components of that. And most importantly, please ask me any questions. This is my contact information here, Dana Stevens. That is my cell phone number and also my county email.